You're listening to the B&H Photography Podcast. For over 40 years, B&H has been the professional source for photography, video, audio, and more. For your favorite gear, news, and reviews, visit us at bnh.com or download the B&H app to your iPhone or Android device. Now here's your host, Alan Weitz.
Did you hear that Stacy Kranitz was named Instagram Photographer of the Year by Time Magazine for using Instagram as it was intended to be used? If I asked you about Instagram a few short years ago, you would have asked me what I was babbling about. Greetings, my name is Alan Weitz, and this is the B&H Photography Podcast. Today we're going to discuss Instagram and talk about using it as it was intended to be used, or perhaps should be used, by professional photographers. Our guests today include two photographers and a photo editor. We will be talking about how and why they became active in Instagram, whether they believe, as some users believe, Instagram is strictly for smartphone shooters, and their thoughts about filters, comments, and hashtags. We'll also be discussing the best approach to take when establishing a name on Instagram. Is it a diary or maybe an appendage to your website? Lastly, we will talk about advertising on Instagram, making sense of the numbers game, and how to monetize all the time and effort it takes to maintain a presence on Instagram. Sharon Radish and Sam Horine are respected photographers, each having hundreds of thousands of Instagram followers. Libby Peterson is the features editor at Rangefinder magazine, and Instagram is part of her daily life too. Welcome all. First question I have is, how did you first get started in Instagram? And while you're answering that, how has Instagram changed since you've started, and how have you changed? Who wants to take it?
I started Instagram back in 2012 when I got my first iPhone, which was the iPhone 4S. So I was a little bit late to having a smartphone. And I downloaded...
For whatever it's worth, that was my first smartphone.
Okay, good. I simply was looking for photography apps. I was also new to apps, so I was just interested in downloading different ones. And I remember downloading Hipstamatic and Instagram because they were the only two photography apps that were out there at the time that I knew of. And so I just started playing around with Instagram that way.
Sam?
My story's a little bit different.
And we're going to come back to the second part of those questions,
Okay.
By the way. I didn't forget that. Sam, go ahead.
My story's a little bit different in, I guess it's similar in that, I'd just gotten a smartphone and I got in 2010, like right at the very beginning. But I used Instagram in a very different way. I got into photography. I was self-taught, and the ball just kind of started rolling. I started picking up small jobs, and it got bigger and bigger. And I ended up working a lot in editorial, shooting a lot of restaurants and food and that kind of stuff. And my side work was all on Flickr, and Flickr was kind of dying like right in 2010. And I got a smartphone, and I was just like walking around like shooting photos, and started sharing them online. And I was like, this is really cool. Like this is like a new thing.
So for you, it was really a visual diary, in a sense, and for your private work as opposed to your professional work. Is that fair to say?
Very much so at the beginning, yes.
Okay. Sharon, what about you?
So it started out for me as well. I had also been a member of Flickr, and so I was used to shooting as a hobby and uploading and sharing and kind of having that social network and discovering other photographers that way. So it made me very happy that I could do all of this from my phone because I always have my phone on me and not necessarily a big camera. Mm-hmm. So it did start as a visual diary, and I still try and keep it as a visual diary as well, but do share some professional work on there as well.
Okay, thank you. For both of you, a question. Instagram was originally a phone app. Is it a majority of your shots that are from a phone or not any longer?
It's a mix. I don't know if I can really define a percentage offhand. I was a strict iPhone only for over 2 years, I'd say. And more recently have just started posting some images that I shoot with my DSLR. And it honestly just started for mere quality reasons.
That was my next question.
And just not really, if I took a shot with my camera, just not having to take the exact same shot with my iPhone, I thought that was a little silly, but I feel like as long as the look is consistent for me, it doesn't quite matter which camera I use. As long as it looks and feels like an Instagram photo, I would post with my phone. And
what is an Instagram photo?
Well, I was actually just going to say,
what isn't an Instagram photo?
For me, just for what I shoot, the line is very fine because I'm a still life photographer. So even when I post Instagram images, a lot of them are little still lifes I create in my apartment or my studio. So I don't know, is that portfolio work or is it Instagram work? I'm not sure. It's still kind of what I've been inspired by that day, or if I'm just collecting little things around the apartment to shoot. I don't know, is that an Instagram image because I've sat there and created a still life? I'm not sure what that
I
answer
actually
is.
was thinking about that a lot. Sam, do you have any thoughts? Because I actually do have a thought about what qualifies as an Instagram image, but I'd like to hear your take on that first.
I mean, I think anything could be an Instagram image. Once you start like overthinking it and, over curating it, it kind of becomes a little sterile.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a photographer. I'll shoot with whatever I have. I have the iPhone. I'll shoot with the iPhone. If I have the camera, I'll shoot with the camera. And certainly like all the new cameras having like Wi-Fi in them has kind of really helped that one.
Yeah.
I mean, there was for a while like.
But that's a post-production issue. I'm talking about what qualifies a photograph as being good for Instagram.
If I like it.
If you like it. Okay. Good. That's actually that is one of the important criteria. I'll tell you what my take is on it, and I was thinking carefully about that, and I realized that some pictures work better on Instagram than others, and it clicked on me why some do. And it has to do with the fact that we're looking at a very small visual canvas. Could be a phone, which you're talking about an image that's what, a half-inch tall? Now, the smaller an image is, the less cluttered it has to be. It has to be simpler lines and visual dynamics. So I think what makes an Instagram picture good or appropriate, or one that will pop out at you, is one that has a minimal amount of visual elements in it and a strong visual dynamic.
I think also, aside from the actual visual part of the Instagram picture, I think what makes a good Instagram image is that it's a reflection upon what you're doing that day. I think people are very interested in your life and what you're doing. So I think just having that extra personal element creates a better, quote, better Instagram image than maybe just uploading work you shot last week just because you like the picture or want to share it.
Libby, as an editor, do you always check a photographer's Instagram account when you're looking at new work? And how important is Instagram from an editor's perspective?
If a photographer doesn't have an Instagram, I think it's a little bit unusual just because it's such a great platform to not only share your work, but discover other people's work too. And I think as a photographer, that's really important that you're part of a community. But I always check their Instagram accounts. I always do. I mean, I'll look at the online portfolio usually first. But I find that most photographers don't always update their portfolio as frequently as they do with their Instagram account.
Interesting point.
Yeah. So
yes.
If I want to look at really recent work, that's where I'll go.
There really seems to be like a staticness of a website compared to Instagram. Instagram is very organic, whereas
I'm going to guess Instagram's just a little easier. I mean, I'm not a web programmer, and so to keep my website updated, it's kind of a pain.
yeah.
It's kind of a hassle. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Do you find that you're relying more on Instagram than websites? Is there actually a shift going on?
I would probably look at both.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think Instagram is a replacement. What do you think?
Well, yeah, I mean, like my website personally, like hasn't been updated in a couple of years, and so I love the work that's on there, which is why I still keep it on there, and I do direct people there. But whenever someone's like, hey, what have you been up to? Like a client or something like that, or a potential client, I'm like, oh, like here's go to Instagram, like you can kind of see what's going on. Instagram, Tumblr are kind of the two.
I think the beauty of it too for photographers, you guys probably know better, is when you're on assignment, you can actually be updating that.
Quite often, there's some very good shots that come out as the tossaways, as the casual shots, which you may not show to an art director or an editor under more formal circumstances. But if you're shooting with Instagram and you're posting the good shots and also tossing in the fun shots, there's a better chance, I think, of having some of the more casual shots, which could be very strong, picked up and used. Whereas before you might say, oh, they wouldn't be interested in that. Any accuracy to that?
I completely agree. I mean, I really like that about Instagram, that you see more than what is on your website. Not just updating wise, but, like the outtakes that you're not really going to submit or something. I mean, at Rangefinder, our July-August portrait issue was not it wasn't an outtake, but it was kind of a personal shot. And when I was asking the photographer requesting various photos, half were taken on assignment, but the other half were really just personal stuff that he wasn't selling or wasn't really promoting at all. But I saw on his Instagram, really liked it.
Sharon, any thoughts on that? Do you maintain a website at all?
I do, yes.
do?
And I actually do update it pretty frequently because that is the first thing I do send out to editors and art directors. And then my Instagram is linked from there, so if they choose to continue on to my Instagram. So I do try and make sure my website is constantly updated. But I do enjoy Instagram for sharing more of those behind-the-scenes photos that may not necessarily make it to my website, but that I still like the feel of them and maybe will like better how they look on my Instagram account as opposed to my portfolio.
So it's two different vehicles, and you have a very different attitude about each one of them. It's fair to say the same for you, Sam?
I mean, I send people to Tumblr mostly. That's kind of my go-to. Like my workflow very much is, I shoot on a variety of devices. Some of it's iPhone, some of it's DSLR, but all of it goes to my phone to be edited for Instagram. And so, I do a lot of travel work, and when I'm on location, it's like, whatever I'm shooting, I then edit on the phone, use a couple apps, post to Instagram, and then, I'm about 3 months behind, and then that's when it kind of hits. I come back and I have some time off, and I edit all the raw files, and those end up going to Tumblr. If I'm on the road for 6 or 7 days, I'll post 10 shots to Instagram, and then make 4 or 5 sets for Tumblr. So 40 or 50 photos that go to Tumblr, and then from that eventually I'll pull 2 or 3 selects that will go on the website.
Do either of you rely on filters a lot, or do you pretty much go with the image that came out of the camera or your phone?
I download all the stuff to my phone and I edit on my phone. I like the app Snapseed and I like Visco, just to kind of clean it up a little bit, straighten things up if they're a little crooked, and maybe bump up the contrast a little bit. But that's about it.
I think that's a difference, though, between editing in that sense and filtering in another sense, because I know, to me, filters are often used to strengthen what is probably a weaker photograph, either technically or aesthetically, and it sort of becomes a gimmicking thing, whereas, playing around with contrast and tone, I think, is a little bit more innocent and is less, destructive to the intent of the picture. Sharon, what about you? You filter reliant, or are you afraid to answer that question?
Not afraid to answer. I'm not filter reliant, but I do use filters sometimes, but it's more to enhance the tones and the contrast because I'm usually familiar with what those filters do and what I'm looking to do with the image while I'm editing it. So if I do use a filter, I usually tone it down to maybe 25 to 30%. So the image will not really look filtered.
Just for the record, I do not use filters on any of my Instagram photographs, and that's because I do all of those effects in Photoshop before I upload them. Okay, so
add some night sky, a big moon, a guy on a cliff edge.
Hashtags. How much time and effort do you put into those?
Not much time, not much effort. Mine are very basic, like coffee, interior, style.
That's actually, if you narrow down your subject, it does make it a little bit easier. That's true.
I'm in the same boat. I don't really hashtag much. Really not at all. I mean, maybe I should.
Libby,
am I missing out?
No, I don't know.
Hashtag rangefinder?
Actually, I think Libby's actually a good person to ask about that.
I hardly ever search through hashtags, actually. I mean, no, not really. Because I find that a lot of people use pretty personal hashtags when they do.
Right.
I mean, so it's kind of hard to search.
I've noticed picture of the day is a very common one to use. So
or
there's
photo
some
of
that's
the
just
day or
crazy.
something.
Say you find somebody who you're interested in, or you're just doing casual browsing. How many pages do you flip back?
It's pretty easy to go pretty far back. So I'm not really sure page-wise to just kind of keep scrolling. But I won't go too far.
But I mean, that's a good point. I mean, Instagram has evolved so much as a platform. I look at some of the stuff that I was sharing 2 or 3 years ago, and I think just the feel of Instagram has changed.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it used to be primarily mobile. Like, when I got into it, it was all mobile, and everyone was mobile, and everyone was very proud to be iPhone only. And, sometime 2 years ago, 18 months ago, like, it feels like that all changed. Like, I don't really know anyone that shoots primarily mobile anymore.
Right. From an editor's perspective, it was a huge relief when Instagram finally got its act together, and their desktop now you can actually search around for different photographers. Before it was just you could only
Right.
look at your own page.
They've
and
gotten
you really
better at
can-
search
Oh,
for
right.
sure.
Yeah.
Like, that's like, I mean, I love searching locations. Like, we were talking about hashtags before, but locations are more like my jam. Like if I'm going somewhere and I'm like, oh, like, what are the top posts for Moscow? And so you could, you type in Moscow and, you can either have the hashtags or the locations, and you can kind of, they filter them all by most recent post, top post. And so, it's a great sort of location scouting tool for me.
Do you
And for
guys
travel as well.
Do you guys delete images? And if you do, how often?
Not so much for me. And, I mean, I like it as a visual diary. Like, I like scrolling back and being like, oh, yeah, like, in June I was in New York City. I like going back and being like, oh, like, here's my summer in photos. Like, this is kind of cool. But, every once in a while I'll be like, I'll go through and I'll look at like, the feed as a grid and be like, why did I post that one? Like, that doesn't really fit in with the feed. Or, I was like, oh, I just really liked it at the time. And, maybe I'll delete it. But as a whole, I mean, I still have my first Instagram post that I put up, which is perhaps the worst photo ever.
And everything from there has just been up. So you use that as your base mark or something?
It goes up and down.
Libby, earlier you mentioned the community of photographers. Do you engage with others through Instagram? And this is really open to all three of us. Some of you.
Absolutely. I feel like I would be excited if a magazine like reached out to me or comment or liked a photo. So from the magazine's perspective, yes.
That's a good point. I know because, getting liked by somebody on the other side of the planet is nice, but to see from a recognized source, that's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, because kind of getting back to what you had asked before about searching hashtags, and I said I don't really do that, but I will look for if somebody's hashtagged rangefinder or RF. I'll look through those. Every month we do a page in the magazine called RF Conversations. We just kind of round up various ways that the magazine was mentioned. If somebody tweeted at us and we, had a question and we answered it, we'll put that in there. Or if one of our contributors had, a little conversation. We also include some Instagram shots. So I will kind of peruse Instagram to see if somebody, took a photo with our cover or something like that. So I will look for that kind of stuff, and we will put that in the magazine.
So you guys like actively sort of curate a community and encourage people to submit
to interact with us and tag us and that kind of stuff. I'll look.
I mean,
through that
I think
stuff.
that's such like a cool thing about Instagram is that like it's definitely broken down a lot of doors and a lot of like boundaries. As previously, like, I mean, if you wanted to get in touch with an art director, you would send them a promo, you would look for their name and their address, like in the front of the book.
Right.
And now that's all changed. Like, now, like, I don't send out promo cards. Well, I do every once in a while because, everyone still likes getting mail.
Oh, yeah, that's
but,
exciting.
I mean, and that's still a great way to connect with people. But getting back to the community aspect, I've met so many amazing people through Instagram and, definitely did not see that one coming when I kind of joined the app as like a fun little side project.
Mm-hmm.
That's something you don't get from a website either.
No,
Right.
like
Never. That's a total
there's no
different
interaction
animal.
at all.
None.
Like
Yeah.
it's very sterile and very put together, and you're like, okay, like here is a presentation. Whereas Instagram is far more interactive and far more energetic, and you kind of you really get to know these people and you get to know their lives a little bit.
Good points. Good points. Do either of you maintain separate Instagram accounts for different types of styles of work or types of work?
No, just my
It's
main
just all
Instagram
out.
account is the only one.
That's it.
Yeah,
You're hedging here. You want to talk about it, but go ahead.
No. I mean, I have a second account, but I started it and I was like, oh, maybe I'll post like something different here. But I never did it. My personal account, I mean, I kind of like to lump everything in there. Although, I've thought more and more as like the main account has grown. I don't ever want to feel hedged in by that community.
Right.
But it's also it's good to be able to just shoot with complete freedom and not worry about what people are going to say and try new things and just kind of put it out there.
Let's get back to the posting. I started to ask about that. How often do you post? How often is it recommended? Because I've heard all kinds of things about you should do it daily, you should do it every other day or every week, or whenever there's a blood moon or something.
I mean, I think the one rule that seems to be most beneficial is that you should post with regularity, whether that's every day at 8:15 in the morning or every Friday afternoon. Like, whatever your personal rhythm is, like you should try to find like, some regularity, because the people who kind of tune in want to know like
They should sense your rhythm.
they should sense the rhythm.
And how many pictures are you doing at any time? Does that matter?
You definitely don't want to bombard your audience. I mean, I think you can definitely post too little for sure.
What's too little? How would you define that?
Once a week? I don't know. What do you guys think?
I'd say once a week is pretty rare
Yeah.
to post.
Okay. That would be my feeling too.
Right.
Because everyone has shorter and shorter attention spans. A week is an eternity.
I guess it just depends on how many people you follow too, how many photos are popping up on your Instagram in general. But no, for rangefinder, last year our Instagram game wasn't very strong. We probably posted once a week. Now we post probably 2 or 3 times a day, I want to say. Not always on the weekends, but we always leave at least a few hours between each post. I would not recommend posting 5 photos all in a row or something like that.
No,
No,
definitely not in a
no.
row.
Yeah.
Like, you kind of got to spread it out.
Yeah, at
Yeah.
least a couple hours in between each photo, I'd say.
Okay.
That way everyone has time to go through your feed.
To digest
All your followers
everything,
are
yeah.
looking at one, and then a couple hours go by and they'll see another one.
Right.
And that brings you back. It's a good point. Now, here's a big one. Monetizing. We're all putting all this time and effort into it. And a website, when you go in there, if you're a professional photographer, you're expecting to get clients. Now, Instagram is turning into that kind of a vehicle too. What are your experiences with monetizing your photographs? Any good stories, any interesting things, any aha moments that you've had that you didn't expect when you went into this?
Do you mean monetizing as
In other words, making money from your pictures. You're putting
from
photographs up
our
there.
feed or
From your
brands
feed?
hiring?
Well, both. I mean, are people hiring you because are you selling individual pictures? Are you getting assignments? How has this turned into capital, into money, into feedback, financial feedback?
Well, I think with social media in general, it has opened up many doors for photographers to, it's another outlet that people are hiring photographers to do work. So aside from our personal feeds, I feel like a lot of brands are recognizing the importance of Instagram and having good imagery on their Instagram. And they're actually outsourcing to photographers to produce that content for them, which 10 years ago didn't exist. So I think we are very lucky in this day and age that we have that whole other outlet to get work with clients. And as far as our own feed goes, there are definitely I think once you have a larger following, brands will approach you to maybe take out an ad space or a marketing space on your feed to endorse their product. So it could go both ways.
That's the payoff. Sam?
I think the greatest thing about Instagram is just the exposure that it provides to photographers. Advertising on Instagram is, when it's done tastefully, I think it's done really well. And for a couple of years, there was no advertising on it, no native advertising anyway.
It's a tough question.
Before Instagram itself started selling ad space, they were looking at sort of like influencers to kind of like peddle products. It's nothing new. It's like, it's the same as like blogs.
As blogs.
It's like,
It is. I think what I've noticed with photographers using their feeds for advertisements, I think, as Sam said, if it's done tastefully, I still enjoy seeing that photographer's style if I follow their
like
feed.
I like
and
seeing
whether or
people
not,
that I like and people I know, like,
Exactly.
Work with big brands and, sort of put their own spin on it. Like, I mean, that's like, when it's done really well. When it's not done really well, it's like, someone posting like other people's content,
right.
just sort of like shilling, for lack of a better word. I mean, it's like everyone has to eat. I get it. The fine line between tasteful and too much is very fine. I mean, there's been an entire proliferation of companies that have sort of like leached onto this whole movement and are willing to give anyone with 5,000 followers the chance to sell $50 ads, which waters it down. It makes it terrible. It's certainly very wild, wild west right now with advertising and social media. I think
It is.
everyone's kind of trying to figure it out. The FTC is trying to figure it out. Where it goes, I think, will dictate in the long run sort of like where Instagram goes as a platform.
Which takes us to our last question. Where are we going with Instagram? Thank you. You're good. You can come back anytime. Thank you so much.
All
Finding
right.
segues could be tricky sometimes. But
No, I had something else to add, too.
please, go right ahead.
To go back to when we were discussing kind of the fine line between a photographer using their Instagram feed as an influential platform with ads, I think when it comes down to it, for the photographer to do it carefully, you have to realize that it's your brand too. So
Right.
True.
If you choose to rent out your feed for ad space, or you choose to shoot a product that you would like to endorse on your feed, it's important that you keep it your own style, because it's still your brand you're putting out there. No matter if someone's paying you or not, it's your brand. And I think that's the most valuable thing to remember when getting into advertising and Instagram, and so you can maintain your following and your style.
That's interesting, because say if you're working from a website and you put your work out there, it could be your personal work, quite often that could lead to getting assignments for things that you don't necessarily endorse because they just like the way you see things. And again, it's a nice job and it pays the bills, but you may or may not want that to show up on your site necessarily.
Sure.
To be part of your visual personality. So maybe with Instagram, it's a little bit more sensitive to that because it is such a fluid, organic thing.
It is. I would surely take a shoot that maybe wasn't quite my style, that had nothing to do with Instagram, to, quote, pay the bills, rather than shoot an ad that I didn't feel like would be my style and representative of my brand to put on my Instagram account.
But you would put it on your website.
If I felt that it was my style.
Okay.
Yes,
all right.
but
So
if
you're
not,
sticking to your guns.
I'm
okay.
sticking to my guns.
That's
Yeah,
fine. Good for you.
There's a lot of work that I've done that I love, that I just, we get hired to do many different things.
Sure.
So if I really feel like it fits with my brand, I'll put it on my website and or Instagram, but I try to keep it very specific.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
You should promote or share the work that you want to shoot.
Yeah. Exactly. You sort of create your own clientele that way.
So how would you change Instagram if you could? Where would you want it to go? What do you hope to see from it or get from it moving forward?
One thing that has changed, which I would love to see change, is that everyone I follow, I would like to see their images in my feed.
Fair point.
Ah, okay.
That is something that has recently changed, and that is has been a bit frustrating to many people.
Not for the better.
Not for the better.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, that was going to be my point as well. Like, I mean, I would love to see Instagram go back to embracing photography. Like, I feel like at the very beginning, like, it was a photographer's community. It really embraced like creativity and photography, and sort of bringing people together and raising people up. And it's definitely changed a little bit in the past few years. It's changed a lot in the past few years, but I mean, as it moves towards more of a Facebook algorithm,
it's making it more challenging to follow those you want to follow, and
right, like when I log on, like I want to see all the people I follow,
Right.
Not,
That's why you followed them.
Right.
Yeah.
not the people I've interacted with the most in the past month.
on the flip side, though, I do think I have been able to discover more people I would like to follow by using the Explore page. I think that has
gotten better.
that
That's
has
super
gotten a
helpful.
lot better.
Yeah.
Let's wrap up on numbers. How much validity do you put into a lot of these numbers? How much of that goes into the numbers to where people are just saying, I'm going to endorse you and you endorse me back and forth? And so it's sort of like padding a little bit. Any thoughts about that?
I mean, that was certainly the culture of Instagram for a little while at the very beginning, where there was this whole sort of like follow for follow movement,
Right.
and shout out for
Like for
shout out
like,
movement,
yeah.
like for like. And thankfully, that's kind of gone away.
From an editor's perspective, as far as looking at a photographer's Instagram and seeing how many followers they have. I mean, just when I looked up you two in preparation for this, I was like, whoa, that's very, very impressive. I mean, I can understand why you chose them, and obviously they have great work too. But I find that it's not all that, it doesn't make that much of a difference. I mean, Rangefinder does these takeovers. We have a photographer takeover account, and I think in the beginning, I was reaching out to people that had a really impressive following because I was thinking, they would then post on their own account to say, hey, like, I'm going to take over Rangefinder. And then obviously that...
It would build up the account a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. But I found out, I kind of figured out in the end that we got pretty much the same amount of likes and followers, whether we had somebody take over our account who had 90,000 versus 1,000 or 750 followers. I mean, if you have great work, that's what resonates. That's what matters, because that's what Instagram is. It's all visual. So,
Right. And the consistency of that work too.
Right.
I think when brands are trying to reach out to people to tag them, to get people traffic to their feed, it's important that they already have really good, consistent content there, because they kind of only have that one chance for people to click through, and that first impression is what is going to decide if they're going to follow or not, or want to keep up with their brand.
exactly.
Yeah, I've definitely seen some people do it quite wrong, where people have been like, oh, like, will you mention us and, talk about how we're going to be sharing your content on our feed? And I'm like, sure. You have to share the content first. Like, I can't be like, oh, yeah, like I'm sharing content on X channel all week, and then you don't post any of my content for 3 days. Like, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
Like, people might go over and then go, oh, like this is content from, 2 weeks ago, and, it's nothing.
Do you employ strategies for getting more followers? Have you found any tricks that work?
I think for me, it's been consistent content.
Right.
Okay.
That's really it. Like, I mean, were you ever a suggested user?
Once for 2 weeks.
For 2 weeks, yeah. I was as well.
Can you, what is that now? That's?
So Instagram has a suggested user list.
Okay.
Which they sort of employ to sort of, I don't even know what they use it for anymore. Is it still in existence?
I think it is. Essentially, Instagram will follow. So if you look at who Instagram is following, they're considered the suggested users, and they change it every couple of weeks.
Okay.
And originally, I believe that it was used when people signed up for Instagram. They would.
I think it's still maybe that way.
Yeah.
So whenever a new user comes onto the platform, they go, here are some users that you might enjoy.
To follow, right. So
Gotcha,
they're
okay.
kind of promoting your feed to new people who sign up to Instagram.
Okay.
So what Sam was asking is, have we ever been on the suggested user list? And I think when it first started, they kind of kept rotating the same people on the list as well. But it's changed a bit where you kind of get a 2-week window, I believe.
But now most people don't really want to be on it seems. Like when you read like the comments on the groups and stuff like that.
Oh, really?
Well, because now it's just all the ghost followers.
It's ghost followers,
where
yeah.
It's like, you might pick up 100,000 followers in 2 weeks, but like,
but your likes stay the same.
None of them are active, which is actually a curse on your account. Like if you have like, 100,000 followers and get 50 likes.
Red flag a little bit.
Like no one is going to be like, oh, like let's hire that guy.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Some content will resonate better with an audience. Portraits never really do that well, which has been, a thing in Instagram for forever, as long as we've all been on it. You can post the most amazing portrait and, people will be like, meh, I don't know that person.
Right.
Like,
So what is hot? If portraits are low desirable, what do you consider the hottest images out there? What do you guys look for when you go out there?
well, I mean, I think what we consider important is different than like, I'm not pandering to the masses with my work.
Right.
At least not intentionally. For my stuff, like travel does well, like New York City does well. Instagram, the community is interesting because it's become a bit homogenized for sure. And that, like we were sort of talking about before, a lot of people that are new to the platform and want to be photographers, sort of come on and emulate some of the people who've been there for a while. And, you start seeing the same shots over and over again, which,
Gets a little saturated.
It gets a little saturated. Like,
Yeah.
if I have to see one more shot of like, a mountain reflecting in a lake, like I get it, it's pretty. Like, and a lot of people are going to click like and go, oh, I love that mountain reflecting in the lake.
Yeah.
But like,
Latte art.
I don't know. You gotta push yourself hard. This is an interesting position for me. I feel like I want to post every day, and like, it definitely drives me to go out and create content, and just for the sheer purpose of posting to Instagram, because it's such a driving personal brand. It really, it forces you to kind of be out there and making work, like you said earlier, where it's like, I try to post every day, I try to shoot every day. It's been great for that.
Right. It's not for likes or follows. It's just for your own exercise to try and
mental exercise.
make
Yeah.
something every day.
Okay. Thank you, Sam. Thank you, Sharon. And thank you, Libby. Thank you, John Harris, our producer, and Jason Tables, our engineer. Give us your opinions on Twitter at BHPhotoVideo with the hashtag BHPhotoPodcast, and please rate and leave a review on iTunes. My name is Alan Weitz. Thank you very much for tuning in today.